Alright everyone, welcome back to A Year in the TikTok of Gigi Peache. Today I am hoping to get through all of the rest of her TikToks, even if it goes over like my 1 hour thing, because I'm thinking I would end up cutting out quite a bit of it. So I don't know how much you guys are going to be left with as like a full video, because it seems like when I'm looking through some of her TikToks over the past year, it seems like she goes through phases of bouts of fat acceptance rhetoric just galore, and then talking about other things for months even. So I don't know exactly how much is going to be in this video. Quick note on the pet tax. Today we are looking more at my dog Lily because I love her, and I thought I might just include some fun facts about Lily at the end of the video. I don't know if anyone really cares, but everyone loves dogs. Well, most people love dogs, so anyway, might as well just get into it. So this first video is a continuation of that nurse story that we ended the last video with.
Right now, you were as bad as that nurse by shaming nurses. Can you imagine being like, oh, like, what did you get cancelled for? Nurse shaming. Nurse shaming. Anyway, although her bedside manner wasn't great, why did you have the weight loss surgery if you didn't stick to it? There's a lot to unpack here. And for someone whose username is take a look around you, you really didn't take a look around yourself and read the fucking room, did you? Let me be very clear. Me and other patients that speak out against being mistreated by medical staff are not shaming a whole profession. I'm shaming bad nurses. And if that resonates with you, then darling, that says more about you than it does about me. I have experienced so many bad nurses, and I'm not exaggerating. I have spent, in the last 2 years, I've spent more than 6 months in hospital. That's a lot of fucking abuse and a lot of fucking bad nurses. Do I think every nurse is bad? No.
I don't know, there's just something about the way they're framing this that I struggle with. I'm not saying that there aren't bad nurses, there are definitely bad nurses, but the way they're making this sound is that for the entire 6 months that they were in the hospital, they only experienced bad nurses. And was that the case from their perspective? And if so, either that's a really shitty hospital that they live near, or it's not a complete picture of the situation. I'm very accident prone and have been to the emergency room a number of times, granted. Less so as an adult. As a kid, I was very severely fever prone, with excessively high fever. So me going to the emergency room wasn't a common thing. It's not like it happened all the time, but it wasn't uncommon either. But even as an adult, the nurses that I interacted with were always very pleasant. And I'm not saying, and I understand that Gigi is saying that, there's good nurses out there. I just find it weird that it seems like this whole framing of the past 6 months and been dealing in and out of the hospital a lot, and like every single nurse that they've encountered is a bad nurse. When that's the case, I can't help but wonder, is this a matter of perspective? Maybe because when we're in pain, when we're in a lot of pain, about a couple of years ago, I was trying to clean out some candle jars, and this whole thing happened where I ended up spilling boiling water all over my arm, and like the skin literally melted off and everything. And while I was in that immense amount of pain, it's the most, I've broken bones, I've had plenty of shit happen, and it was the most painful experience of my life. And no one could move fast enough for me because I was in such intense amount of pain. Something where I was probably only waiting 15-20 minutes for the triage nurse to come by felt like hours. because I was in such intense amount of pain. The nurses were perfectly nice to me. They were, but at that moment, no one could act fast enough. No one could give me enough care. I don't think I lashed out at anyone, but I was just like, please, for the love of God, give me some painkillers because I am in severe pain. So I can't help but wonder if that's like also coloring Gigi's memories a little bit, is that they felt like they weren't getting decent care or anything, but if they were in immense amount of pain, that can also color the perspective. These people likely maybe tried their best, and when you're in like severe, that was the severe burn on my arm was the only time I've really reached a level 9 pain, because at one point I had to hold it up because there was no burn unit in that hospital, so they had to take pictures and send it to a burn unit at another hospital about 30-40 miles away. And I had to hold my arm up away from the ice and just in the open air for them to get a picture with the doctor's phone. And I was violently shaking because I was in so much pain. I honestly don't remember how long that took. I just remember pain. Like I don't remember much of anything. But the point being, when you're in that level of pain, like no one is giving you enough care, really, because you just want the pain to end. You're like, why isn't the pain ending? Why aren't they helping me? Why isn't the and it's not often the sense of the perception of time passing is not accurate and unfair for the doctors when they're probably working at a reasonable pace given your situation because they understand how to triage patients. And you can feel like you're not getting enough care when you really are, at least in the moment. And I can't help but wonder if that's coloring Gigi's perception.
Even in the video that you commented on, I said, are they good nurses? Yes. Are they amazing nurses? Yes. Like, I've met them and I love them. I have friends that are nurses. I have family that are nurses. Yeah, me saying, hey, nurse did a bad thing is not nurse shaming. What the fuck is nurse shaming? I can imagine like it's a school of sharks and I'll like hang out and it's like the great white sharks and they're like, look at that nurse shark. And then like little hammerhead is like, don't nurse shame him. Sorry. Anyway, as for the weight loss surgery, I did stick to it. Have you considered that some people that have weight loss surgery don't get it just to become skinny? Like, I lost 77 kilos. I definitely fucking stuck to it. But the thing is, having weight loss surgery is part of what contributed to me becoming disabled and chronically ill, which means I can't do the same kind of exercise and stuff as other people. Like, it's just not an option. But did I lose 77 kilos anyway? I sure fucking did. Do I love my fat body? I sure fucking do. Did I love my fat body when it was even bigger than this? I sure fucking did. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. Like, I feel like you've just got this idea in your head that someone that gets weight loss surgery is like 105 kilos and then they lose like 30 kilos and suddenly they're like socially acceptable sized. And then you're like, wow, they really stuck to the program. And you forget that some people like myself start at 180 kilos and lose 77 kilos and are still over 100 kilos, but have lost more than right now.
So, unfortunately, this isn't very intuitive for me because I'm from the US and we use the imperial system. So I don't know how many kilos. Well, you know what? Let's do a quick conversion. Okay, so Gigi said they started out at 180 kilos, which is nearly 400 pounds, and then they lost 77 kilos, which would put them at 103. So Gigi's at about 227. So that's a pretty significant amount of weight loss, and for them to lose that level of weight, they definitely had to follow the program some. I am wondering for Gigi if they reached a point where they were like, okay, I'm kind of done following the program exactly, because we've seen, at least with like people from My 600-Pound Life. There have been people that have just religiously followed the program until the doctor said to stop, and they reached lower weights than this. I don't know enough about, because again, Gigi was about 200 pounds less than the My 600-Pound Life people that I've followed. So it does seem, though, that they definitely followed the program for at least a while, and they probably have maintained their weight. I don't know what their current weight is. And I didn't follow them before their weight loss surgery, so I have no idea like how much they've done or anything like that. Opinions. If especially if you've had weight loss surgery, how accurate is this from Gigi that they definitely followed the program? When can you finish like the weight loss program and still be over 200 pounds, still be in the obese category? Or is it a case where if you follow the program to its full completion, you're at a healthy weight by the end of it? Because they definitely seem to have lost a significant amount of weight. So I'm just like wondering how much of this was the surgery, how much of this was them following the plan that they're supposed to. Because I've seen people from My 600-Pound Life get the weight loss surgery but still not follow the plan entirely and not lose that much weight. So I'm curious. Please let anyone who has experience with this, based on the numbers that we've gotten from Gigi, what's your opinion on how well they followed the weight loss plan?
I find it a little bit curious, a little bit interesting that someone that doesn't know me, someone that is not me, and that wasn't there, finds it appropriate to comment this, saying, seriously, don't think you were dying, maybe felt really sick, but not dying. The easiest way for me to explain this is by saying, no, I was dying. So my body was shutting down, my body was dying, I was dying, and I got really lucky, and I say lucky so lightly, but I was really lucky that when my body was shutting down, it started with my limbs and not with my organs, because if it had started with my organs, I would have already been dead. However, I was just really lucky that it started with my limbs and that left me permanently disabled and triggered the onset of a neurological disorder as well, because it did actually impact my brain, and I was in hospital for 5 months straight at that point. For at least 3.5 months of that time, I was at high risk of going into a coma, especially when I first came in. So when I'm saying that like I was dying, my body was shutting down, and I was at very high risk of going into a coma. And if I had gone into that coma, I wouldn't have woken up. And I know this because my neurologists, plural neurologists, told me this. And also so did the emergency department doctors. But I used to get in trouble because they'd be like, can we get you anything? And I'd be like, I could go for a nice coma, because like I didn't want to be there anymore, boy. Like, let me tell you, that amount of time in hospital is not fun. And they would be like, you can't keep asking for a coma because you might accidentally get one. And I'm like, well, Santa's coming early. But yeah, no, that I was actually in hospital over Christmas, which is a bit funny. Anyway, yeah, I was dying. Sorry if you think that that's a dramatic way of saying it, but that is the truth. I was dying. Thank you.
I think the big thing is that you guys are approaching it with two different definitions of dying, and I that actually sounds really weird, but what I mean is that Gigi was probably experiencing something that, left unchecked, would have resulted fairly quickly in her death, but for an emergency room, they look for like imminent death, and that Gigi probably wasn't quite to that point yet. Clearly there was something seriously wrong with them, and they needed to be treated, and I'm glad that they got their treatment. So I understand that there's people that don't care about their jobs in all professions, but I do think that, especially with emergency room people, they do their best with the information that they have at the time and with the amount of patients that they are dealing with at one time. A lot of hospitals and ERs are overtaxed with the amount of people coming in. They're people too. They can only do so much. Like, I'm sure someone fucked up in Gigi's case, but I'm not, I, I feel like there's this attribution of malice intent where I don't necessarily think there was one. I don't know. I tend to, when things are with high stress positions, especially high stress, high consequence situations, because doctors and nurses have high consequence jobs where if they fuck up their job, someone could die. And so I think they really do try their best. And I'm not saying that there are people that don't care about their jobs. I don't know. I don't know. This one's a little hard to comment on because I understand feeling like the doctors didn't do enough, but it's not the same. But working in schools and working as a teacher and stuff, I know that there's a lot of people with like trauma related to teachers that they encountered, and there's plenty of teachers that can absolutely just be assholes. But then there's also those of us that probably don't handle things, at least especially early on in the career, when things aren't handled as well as they could have been. We do the best for each child that we can do with the information and the skills that we have at the time. And to a certain extent, I think that carries over to other professions. I think it's the same for medical staff. I honestly think that the vast majority of them do the best that they can with the information, the skills, and the training that they have at the time.
I don't mind admitting that there are times that I may have contributed to what a problem you're on about, but the fact of the matter is that I can think of one time where I was in an extreme amount of pain and a nurse mistreated me. And I feel like, maybe me being in that kind of pain might have contributed to like them being very stressed or something like that. I don't know what the rest of their day was like. Either way, I still didn't deserve to be mistreated. I don't deserve.
My question is though, how do you define mistreatment? That's my question. Do you feel like the nurse snapped at you? Do you feel like the nurse was blasé and wasn't handling things as quick as they could have? Do you feel like the nurse wasn't taking you seriously? How do you define being mistreated is my question.
As a person and as a patient to be discriminated against. And I don't deserve indignity. I don't deserve humiliation. I don't deserve to not be treated like a person. The dehumanization of so many of us is just completely overlooked because, like, let's be honest, the opinions of like these medical professionals that are mistreating us are often the opinions of a lot of people out there in public anyway. That fat people don't deserve respect, that women are just exaggerating, and I'm not even a woman, I just look like one. I don't know what you look like, I don't know what your situation is, but I know mine. And I'm a fat person, I'm a non-binary person, I'm a person that was assigned female at birth, and on top of that, I have like chronic illness, I'm disabled, I have 9 diagnosed mental illnesses, and I have a neurological disorder. Literally anything that I experience, no matter how scary, is immediately dismissed as women just get random pains sometimes. Like, not a woman, but I get that you're referring to bodies like mine. But, like, that's not normal, right? When you're a fat person, you go in and you're like, hey, really keen on, like, getting my broken finger fixed. And they go, great. Here's a weight loss program. And you go, wow, my broken finger is not cured. But thanks for trying.
Not trying to dismiss Gigi's experience, but there are a lot of pains in the human body that are ultimately will either rectify themselves or are benign in the way that like it's not likely to cause permanent damage or death. Some examples of this are if you have gas in your, and I'm not saying that I want to be clear, I'm not saying that this is Gigi's experience. I'm saying that these are a few examples of very painful conditions that, while I suppose that they can like graduate to something more serious when they initially present themselves, can very well pass with no real issue. And one being gas. If you have like gas, the pain can become very intense and sharp. Like it can be very painful, but more often than not it just passes without issue. Sometimes pulled muscles, or what's the term? It happened to me where it's like, is it technically considered a sprain where a tendon gets a little overstretched? It's not like horribly, it didn't snap, it's just a little overstretched. And it can be an intense level of pain. But mostly what you have to do is just rest it and you'll be okay. There's You can have like pretty severe headaches that, like, I've had migraines that are just unbelievably painful, but it's not a serious issue. It's an unfortunate condition that can be very painful, but there's not anything progressing in me that would lead to significant disability or uh, death. There's just, I have to admit, Gigi in this sounds a little bit like a martyr, and I like Gigi Peache, but this is one where it's like, I'm not saying that you haven't had some bad experiences, but I think for all of your experiences in the hospital to be so negative with different nurses and different doctors, perhaps you're expecting a bit too much. Perhaps you don't understand how things work. I don't know. I just, and I'm not discounting what they're dealing with. I just think that there's this very unrealistic expectation sometimes of doctors to just fix everything immediately and take things as seriously as you take them, when the doctor may realize what it is, and while it may be painful, it's not imminently life threatening. It's not at risk of giving you disability. It's just painful and it sucks sometimes.
I'll use the brochure as a cast, I guess. Anyway, any excuse to discriminate is used. That's the reality.
I think that's a very uncharitable view of doctors. I don't think that doctors and nurses are just looking to discriminate. I think that's a very uncharitable view of people in the medical profession.
And I might just have to spend some time going through making some TikToks explaining some of the times where I have been mistreated. I want to bring more light to this. I want people to be aware that it is happening and that it is wrong and that it is a problem. I don't appreciate you trying to dismiss and invalidate my experiences because they don't match up with yours.
I would actually like Gigi to go into some of their experiences, because I'm very curious to know, especially the ones where they say they were in severe amounts of pain, because like I said before, sometimes when you're in severe amounts of pain, everything can just feel like no one's doing enough.
That's my dumb son. If he went to an emergency room, even as a cat, he could be like, oh, my foot hurts, and they'd be like, take it for an x-ray. Because that's male privilege for you. Anyway,
I'm gonna take that as a joke. I'm gonna take that as a joke, because we know that the big difference between humans and animals is that humans can explain the type of pain that they're feeling and the intensity of the pain, where animals cannot.
just try and listen to the experiences of others, because they're going to be different from yours sometimes. You know when you need to write like a book report or an essay or something?
So the comment says, you still alive, so they did their job. You're just as bad, maybe be less dramatic.
Something and you haven't read the book. You're not familiar with the text at all. You didn't check the spark notes, didn't read the cliff notes, nothing, didn't even watch the movie. You're just like, I think I know what To Kill a Mockingbird is about, thank you very much. And then you hand in this like awful essay about how your favorite part of the book was when they finally killed that gosh dang mockingbird. And it's apparent to everyone except you that you've got absolutely no idea what you're talking about. Because this comment is the TikTok equivalent of that. Allow me to explain. You're still alive, so they did their job. That's actually not true. I'm dead. Okay, I'm not dead, but if it was up to them, I probably would have been. Here's what happened. I was admitted to this hospital for just over a week. During that time, I was extremely unwell, my symptoms continued to get worse, they performed a completely unnecessary surgery on me, and then discharged me, again with worsening symptoms, including the beginning of the numbness and tingling in my legs and other limbs, so like a little bit my arms, hands, whatever else. They didn't really stop to think about what that could mean for my body. They were just like, well, you're just bigger, you're just fat, whatever, and we did a surgery that didn't do anything, so you can just go. They discharged me on so many painkillers that I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea what I was actually agreeing to. If I was with it, I would not have let them discharge me because I was not good. I was not okay. 2 days later, I went back to the same hospital because they always tell you, if things get worse or whatever else, come back. So I did. And I was like, hey, really sick. Symptoms are getting worse. I didn't know at the time, but I was dying. I just knew that things were really, really bad. They, once again, didn't take me seriously, and that's the whole, exchange in the video where I was, reenacting the bad nurse, me walking out, things like that. It was actually another hospital that saved me. A different set of nurses, a different team, one with far less resources, by the way, that saved my life. It's that simple. I'm not alive because of the people that fat shamed me. I'm alive because of the hospital that took me seriously. That's it. And in saying that I'm just as bad, that's not true at all, because it's not my negligence and it's not me being bad at my job that nearly killed somebody. And it's not me fat shaming and it's not me discriminating against patients, which result in them having a lifelong disability as a result of my poor decision making. So I'm not just as bad. I'm allowed to point out when people are fucked up and do the wrong thing to me. And telling me to be less dramatic is ridiculous. What's a less dramatic way of saying I was dying? Death was inching closer. That sounds worse. You know when you need...
So I still kind of feel, I'm glad we got a little bit a bigger picture painted. The issue is that Gigi Peache said that as a result of this, they had spent 6 months in the hospital, which I'm guessing was at the other hospital that saved their lives. And yet they also said that in that 6 months, they just experienced that was 6 months of abuse, because they said they had said in this TikTok that they had only spent 1 week at the first hospital where they claimed that the nurse fat shamed them in the ER. And then they went to the other hospital that had less resources that saved their life. But then they also had referenced that in those 6 months, they had been abused. So I'm not entirely sure which part this comment was referring to, but just as Gigi has explained that there are multiple parts to this story, there are multiple points where Gigi says they were abused in the hospital because of their weight or whatever. And it's just kind of like this, even with the idea of those first people didn't save me, the second hospital saved me, great, but you still say that second hospital abused you. So in a way, it still is a matter of that hospital saved your life. You still say that they were abusive towards you and fat shamed you or whatever in a different one where it was 6 months of abuse, which is what you said. So there is this, it seems like every hospital failed you in some way, which feels unfair to the people that worked so hard to save your life. I don't know. Thoughts? Opinions? I'd love to hear them.
I feel this comment so hard. When I was in hospital for that long-term period of about 5 months where I couldn't walk, I was bedbound for quite a while and eventually got bumped up to being able to be in a wheelchair. However, I wasn't allowed to transfer by myself, so I used to have a nurse come transfer me from bed to wheelchair, wheelchair to shower chair or to toilet, whatever else, and then back again. And it was not very dignified. It sucked. And anyway, one day I had this nurse who transferred me from the bed to the wheelchair with me and then took me to one of the bathrooms so I could shower that morning. And she puts me in the shower, well, helps me get in the shower chair. She didn't put me anywhere. Helps me get in the shower chair. She puts the towel on the sink, which is a little bit too far away from the shower chair, but I didn't notice that until after she'd left. So I just showered. At that point, I was just wearing like nighties and like really easy to get on and off kind of stuff. So I didn't need help dressing or undressing because like I already had everything else taken away from me in terms of like dignity and my ability to do things as an adult. So I was like, that's not going to.
This almost sounds like they're mad that they didn't have it was a hospital. I'm sorry. This is one thing where like I'm really starting to question, because when you're in a hospital and you're severely sick, it sucks, but it there in a lot of ways it isn't very dignified just because of how weak you are and you can't do a lot of things by yourself, and it sucks, but I don't think that that's the nurse or the doctor's issue. Now, the nurse leaving the towel on the sink, which is too far away, might have just been an accident on their part. That can happen. I don't know. This isn't reading as this is, I think that they tried to give you dignity by like getting you set up while you were still clothed, and it was easy enough for you to get it on and off so you could do it by yourself, and that way you could have the privacy of like showering privately. And while there was the mistake of the towel, it does seem like the nurse tried to preserve dignity as best they could. I don't know. This is reading as like to a certain extent just the realities of being very sick in the hospital, and it to me it sounds like the nurses and doctors tried their best, at least so far.
Anyway, I finished showering and I realized the towel is too far away for me to reach safely. So I pressed the call button because I'm supposed to press the call button when I'm finished in the shower anyway, because like they need to like help me transfer back into the wheelchair once I'm sorted. So the nurse comes back in, and I think she's a relatively new nurse. She wasn't a student nurse. I don't think she was like just a relatively new nurse. And she comes in and I was like, hey, I'm so sorry. This is awkward. I can't reach the towel. Are you able to pass me the towel? And I'll quickly get dried. And in like a couple minutes, I'll be ready to go. And she takes one look at me, doesn't hand me the towel, and just goes, oh my God, just you stay here. You stay here. I'll be back. And I was like, what is going on? Anyway, she comes back with like a more senior nurse, and I was like, hi, what's going on? I'm like sitting here naked. By the way, she didn't lock the door behind her. Didn't lock the door. I felt very unsafe. I was so anxious, sitting there naked, unable to do anything on this chair. And the nurses come back in. The nurse hands me the towel. And the other nurse is like, look, see, she's been hurting herself. She's got scars all over her body. Look at this. Look. What do? We need to call psych. And I was like, excuse me? And the other nurse is like, what are you talking about? And she's just like, look, her hips, her legs, her breasts, everything. And I was like, those are stretch marks.
I feel like tagging this bad nurse is unfair. Clearly, like you said, they were an inexperienced nurse, and while they handled that very poorly, there was a better way for that to handle. She should have locked the door on her way out. I'm not denying any of that. Like you said, though, pretty sure it was a fairly new nurse. That doesn't make her bad. That makes her sadly inexperienced, and perhaps like maybe she should have been on with someone else as like a mentorship to kind of scaffold some of the work. If this is her first time caring for someone of your size, not used to seeing stretch marks that I think with bigger people, because the comment this all stemmed from was I had a nurse look at the stretch mark on my inner arm and make the conclusion that I was an IV drug user. Now, if you have like really big stretch marks, this can just be for people that aren't experienced dealing with like really overweight people or people that get stretch marks that easily. It could just be a sign of inexperience, and while it's not okay necessarily to behave that way, I think some grace should be given to these people that are trying their best and they're just inexperienced. And from the sound of this, the inexperienced nurse was very concerned for your mental health, was very concerned that there was like self-harm going on. That nurse clearly had good intentions and was just very apparently sheltered that they didn't know what the stretch marks were. And that's okay. And it's just like there were mistakes made, but to me this sounds very much like a case of inexperience, not of malice. And so I think to call this person a bad nurse because they made some rookie fucking mistakes, like, it's definitely something that they should learn from, but to call them a bad nurse for it feels unfair.
How many people were scared? Me too. I was really, really scared. How many people were scared?
Okay, so this one says, my old neurologist, after letting me think I had brain tumor/cancer for 20 plus minutes. And there's no, like, context given to this. There was nothing before this. And again, this is tagged with bad doctor. Maybe they didn't know. Maybe they were waiting for the test to come back and it was a matter of 20 minutes. Like, they weren't sure. Like, there was no context given for this, so I don't know. But this... See, the issue is, and there have been several TikToks that I cut out that involved Gigi looking for a COVID test, and it did seem very, like, martyr and victim-y for something that just kind of sucked. And, like, they went to 7 clinics and couldn't find one. They ended up waiting in line for a time only for the clinic to shut down before they could, right as they were getting there. And that sucks, and I'm not saying it doesn't, but this was during a time when even in the US it was kind of hard to get a hold of a COVID test and get a COVID test. So, like, I'm not, and I understand that they were sick and it sucked, and I'm not denying any of that, but it's just the way things were at the time, and it wasn't. There's just this whole thing with Gigi Peache. As much as I like a lot of their TikToks, especially sharing their experience with sex work, and as someone that's experienced some stuff in their life that is tragic and does suck, it definitely feels like being a victim has become, to a certain extent, part of their personality. And that's where I think, like, the fat acceptance thing comes in. But, I don't know.
I understand that you think you're being well-meaning, but saying no hate and then diving head first into the fat phobia is, in fact, hate.
So, before we continue this, the comment says, no hate, but would a healthier diet resulting in needed weight loss improve your physical and mental condition? As someone that has been kind of trying to lose weight some and kind of falling on and off the wagon in terms of my diet, definitely losing weight for me does improve my mental state, and it improves my physical state too. I don't know Gigi's limitations, Gigi's issues so much, but there is something to be said that losing weight can help. It just, this is anecdotal for myself, but I think there've been a lot of people that I've talked to that it's been similar, where losing some weight does help. It creates better mental clarity for some. Definitely mobility is easier, fewer pains, fewer aches. It's not fat phobic.
Hate to break it to you. But would a healthier diet resulting in needed weight loss improve my physical and mental condition? Short answer, no. long answer, there is no needed weight loss here. Okay, no.
Gigi, yeah, there is. I'm not saying that. I mean, you clearly have come pretty far with your weight loss, but you're still over 200 pounds. And from how we've seen your body distributes its weight, if you are truly only like 227 pounds ish, you have to be fairly short, I'm guessing, because it's definitely pronounced on you. And I'm not saying like short, but definitely I'm gonna say 5'3" ish. It puts you in a high obesity class. Losing weight would help you.
You're just looking at my size and going, yeah, needs to lose weight, unhealthy because fat. Incorrect. And in regards to mentioning a healthier diet, what do you know of my current diet?
We saw you make those puff pastry pizza things, which I guarantee were high in calories, high in fat, probably somewhat low in nutritional value compared to something like lean chicken and veggies that you were eating at 9:30 at night. I'm guessing after a couple of full regular meals. That's overeating. It's eating unhealthy. And definitely something, and I can really only speak for myself in this, but when I eat healthier, I feel better. And when I eat more junk food, I feel sluggish and awful. And it definitely brings down my feelings of mental wellness as well. Like an occasional treat is fine. Eating one badly for one day wouldn't necessarily harm anything for me. But if I were to do it over a series of days, it does make things worse.
You know that when I had COVID, I was eating cyclones, which is an ice block with, some sugar in it, because it's all I could taste. What else do you know of my diet? Tell me, what are my meals like? You don't know, do you? You don't. This implication that you need to lose weight in order to be healthy is just incorrect. Just straight off the bat, wrong.
It's really not, though. I mean, it's not. Weight plays a factor in your healthiness. It is a marker of health. It is.
And while I'm here, just let me shatter, like absolutely shatter, hammer to a glass table, shatter the idea that weight loss would improve my physical or mental condition. Are you ready for this? I lost 77 kilos. And that made me disabled. Losing that weight.
This feels like a bad representation of what happened, given what I've heard, you guys have heard in these TikToks. I've heard my understanding, because weight loss surgery can have some negative impacts. And my understanding was that it wasn't the weight loss that made you disabled. It was the weight loss surgery. Something went wrong with the surgery. That was my understanding based on the information that you've given. Simply losing weight doesn't cause, at least as far as I know, does not cause just permanent disability. Especially weight loss from 400 pounds down to 200 pounds. There may be some mitigating issues that need to be addressed that you should have. That's why you need a doctor if you're going to start losing a massive amount of weight in a fairly quick succession. You have to have a doctor kind of help monitor it for potential issues, because I think that there is an issue with vitamin loss or something where you need to take extra vitamin supplements to help you. Weight loss surgery can have negative outcomes for certain people. For some people, it tends to be a very small percentage, but it can happen. And from my understanding, you were one of the unfortunate people that had bad side effects from the surgery. It wasn't losing weight that gave you those bad side effects, that gave you those bad outcomes, but it was the weight loss surgery. It was the surgery, the actual cutting you open. It was a fallout of that, not a fallout of losing weight.
Caused me to become disabled. It actually made me very, very sick. I now live with chronic illness and chronic pain because of that weight loss. What do you think that whole situation did to my mental health?
I'm not denying that, developing neurological disorder and some disabilities wouldn't affect your mental health. But this seemed to have stemmed from the weight loss surgery. What they're suggesting is a diet change. It's different.
Made it a whole lot worse. People are like, nothing tastes as good as skinny feels. But you know what? If I were to continue losing weight, I can tell you a lot of things that would feel better than being skinny. And that would be being able to walk without excruciating pain. And that would be, I guess, not having to I spent over 6 months.
I would think losing weight, though, putting less stress on your lower body, so that way it doesn't have to hold up as much, would actually make you feel better. I mean, I know that it's neurological, but I still think that having less weight that the body has to maneuver and mobilize would make things easier. Anyone with neurological disorders, feel free to point me out if I'm wrong in this. This is my understanding of what is going on, and this is my idea of thinking about it. This is the conclusion that I'm coming to. And if I'm missing something, if I am wrong, please feel free to say so.
Out of the last 2 years in hospital. Weight loss and being thin does not equal healthy. And being fat does not equal unhealthy. You need to change your mentality, and you need to change your idea of what is no hate, because fat phobia is hate and implying that there is something wrong with my body and that me losing weight would fix all of my problems. That's pretty hateful.
They're not saying that losing weight would solve all of your problems. It's simply, and that's the thing that I get with a lot of FAs, is that it's like, losing weight won't solve all my problems. No one's saying it's going to solve all your problems. We're saying it's going to improve your overall life, but it's not going to solve things. It's not going to make everything go away, but it can make things more manageable. It can make things easier to manage. It can remove some of the aches and pains that drag you down in day-to-day life. No one's saying it solves anything. Just saying that it improves the situation. It's like saying, I think the average person sees weight loss with any realistic understanding. I'm not talking about those that do think that weight loss is going to solve all their problems, but I think that people that have a realistic view of weight loss view weight loss and healthy living and eating whole foods and cutting down on sugary and fat foods and being mindful of their calorie intake, view it as a type of medicine. It is not something that solves everything. It is something that helps manage things. You don't expect physical therapy. Physical therapy doesn't guarantee that you will never get hurt again. You will never, have another musculoskeletal injury again. It just reduces, because you understand body mechanics better and you build up some strength. It reduces the likelihood of having that pain again. Or if you start to have that pain again, you can recognize it sooner and you can adjust things based on what you learned in physical therapy to make things easier on yourself, so that way you don't get to that really bad point again. Weight loss is similar. You are less likely to get to something really significant because you have less weight that your body is trying to maneuver and less weight that can compound injury.
If you feel comfortable with this, would you mind elaborating on the pain? I don't mind. And to the people that have been unkind, because this person has been quite respectful, but a lot of people have been a bit rude in asking what's wrong with me or what my disability is, you're about to get the answer you think I've been depriving you of. I have a neurological disorder called functional neurological disorder, which is shortened to FND. It presents differently and quite uniquely in each individual case, and diagnosis is quite rare. It is considered to be a rare neurological disorder. However, it is somewhat overdiagnosed in cases that are not proven to be definitively FND, which gets a little bit confusing and a little bit invalidating for some people, but unfortunately that just is the case. For me personally, FND presents currently as a lot of pain. So for me, it's neurological pain, which is nerve pain, specifically peripheral nerve pain. So my hands, arms, legs, feet, limbs. It can also present literally anywhere in my body as well. It does what it wants. So for me, a lot of the time it is like a tingly pain, sometimes a numb and tingly pain. And then other times it's this really fun burning pain, which is the worst thing I've ever felt in my life. I also experience like sharp pains, like shooting pains, stabbing pains. Sometimes like this feeling of like something is like exploding out through my leg and it's like on fire, but also it's like this giant open wound. I have no idea, but there's nothing actually happening there, but I've got the pain of it. It's weird and it's uncomfortable. Because of my neurological disorder, I spent just over 5 months in hospital straight. I had to learn to walk again. I was very, very sick. And I was told that I would...
And there's a little, Gigi added something here that says, nearly dying and spending months being at high risk of going into a coma. I spent months doing inpatient physical rehab to learn to walk and do other things again.
Never walk again. The pathways in my brain that are like, this thing make leg walk. Yeah, they're broken. No. So I had to form new pathways to do certain things with my hands, my legs. My feet and toes were very difficult to work on. But I went from being told I was going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life to deciding I hate my abusive neurologist. I'm going to walk. Fuck you. And now I can walk. It just takes a bit of extra thinking, bit of extra caution, bit of pain. Oh, sorry, I'm tired. And it also presents in other ways, like, you know, chronic fatigue. I don't even know. There's so many things that are, like, I've used to have a lot of seizures, like, all the time. Lord knows.
So the thing that caught my attention, though, while Gigi was talking about all of this, is that, again, they referred to their neurologist as abusive. Like, every medical professional they referred to as abusive. And either they have the shittiest luck in the world with medical professionals, number one. Number two, or possibly Australia just has the shittiest medical professionals ever, which I don't think is the case. Or number three, this is a matter of perception on Gigi's part. Gigi needs to work on maybe not perceiving everything as an attack based on, I don't know, because they're female, because they are disabled, because they are fat. Like, they have labeled every medical professional as abusive so far. Like, I haven't heard of them say once yet about a really good medical professional that they've dealt with. And, or even a decent one being a bit accident prone. So I've dealt with doctors in the ER and stuff. Most of the people that I've dealt with were, like, ranged from average, didn't really think about it, to very good. I've had, like, maybe one doctor and one nurse in my 30 years of life that I'm like, they sucked. So I don't know, like, it seems like every interaction that Gigi has with a medical professional is bad. And I have a hard, like, the common denominator is Gigi. But I'm curious about this functional neurological disorder. I was just curious about the rarity of FND. And it says an estimated 4 to 12 people per 100,000 will develop FND. Is it a permanent disability? For the majority of people with FND, a comprehensive multidisciplinary treatment program is essential to manage symptoms and prevent permanent disability. Is it a lifelong condition? It is a lifelong condition. I have no doubt that it's a real diagnosis, but FNDs are very real diseases, with symptoms that cause significant distress and disability if left untreated. A functional neurological disorder is diagnosed when a patient has neurological and psychiatric symptoms that can't be explained by any known neurological disorder or medical disease. So it is in fact a disease, but there's nothing particularly specific about it. It seems to be like a catch-all when the doctors don't know what's going on. And see, this is the issue I have, is that it's a neurological disorder. I don't think that this was caused by the weight loss, like Gigi seems to claim that it does. It could have been caused by the surgery, but to me, given that it's neurological, I can't help but wonder if maybe Gigi was allergic to the general anesthesia that was used. I'm not a doctor. I don't know. I don't know how these things would be triggered, but to me that seems like... I hope it was noted. Because maybe it was triggered by a bad reaction to the general anesthesia that was used for the weight loss surgery. Curious, is it inherited? It is likely that it is genetic for some, but it is by no means going to be genetic just because it has in the past and because you now have FND. Okay. So anyway, I was curious about that. I wanted to just take a look at a couple of things, but let's move on. Alright, so I'm guessing that this is going to force me to mute or change the music, but this is that Funny Fat Friend song that Gigi is using. I'm going to pause and read the different little captions that she puts on the video. To the Gigi that was treated as less than by everyone else for being fat, you deserved better.
I've drawn out in Sharpie where I take the scissors if that's what it took for me to look in the mirror. I've done every...
You kept defying the expectation that being fat meant you weren't as intelligent, capable, and pretty.
diet to make me look thinner, so why do I still feel...
Only to be met with, you'd be so pretty if you lost weight.
so goddamn inferior? Can't be...
You feel sick? Did you eat too much too fast? You're so fucking fat. No one wants to look at that. We don't hire people your size.
too loud and can't be too busy.
Should you really eat that? Fat girls shouldn't wear crop tops. You're going to die being this fat. You're disgusting and should be dead. Who would want you?
I don't answer now, are they still
You're lazy and disgusting.
gonna need me? Can't be too proud and can't...
That's not flattering. Things like you don't get respect. Have you tried Weight Watchers? You should try Duramine.
think I'm pretty. Do they keep me around so they're flawed?
Lose some weight. God, you're what's wrong with the world. So this is just like a lot of things. I'm going to stop here with it. It's very much like what we see with the rest of the FAs. It's like I was always mistreated by everyone, and I'm not going to say that Gigi never heard all of these things. It's possible that they did, but I don't know. It seems like this... I think what it is that it reminds me of like taking what one or few negative people said and generalizing it to everyone always treating you that way. Because like I participated in a lot of male dominated spaces as a kid, as a teenager, and there were some assholes in there that were definitely not welcome to women, that believed that women shouldn't be in the space, that said sexual comments to me that were very inappropriate, made me uncomfortable, and after a while I did get tired of having to prove my nerdiness to these people. That being said, the vast majority of people were very polite and kind to me. The vast majority of people, it was a fun time. I just got tired of the few assholes in it. Doesn't mean that I would qualify the tabletop card game space as misogynistic, because the vast majority of people in there treated me well. They treated me like a person. But there were enough assholes that made me want to just kind of step away from the space, because these assholes kind of ruined the experience. Doesn't mean that, and I don't necessarily think that it was on like the other men, the other boys, the other men in the space to call them out, because to a certain extent I need to be able to hold my own. That being said, I just got tired of having to hold my own. So there was like, the assholes can ruin it, but it doesn't mean that the assholes were the only experience. I hope that makes sense.
Butterfly in the sky, I can go twice as high. My legs they jiggle jiggle, not toned. I like to eat jam and cream on scones. My belly has stretch marks, you know, sitting on my sofa, eating what I wanna. Ooh. My legs they jiggle jiggle, not toned.
If you want to eat what you want, that's fine, but what I don't understand how the fat acceptance people can be like, oh, I eat what I want, I don't police what I want, this is just what, I want to eat, and I'm not going to restrict myself, and then say that diet and exercise has nothing to do with your weight. Like, this isn't specific to Gigi. It's just a common thing I've seen. It's like you talk about all the stuff you eat, and then you're like, but I have no control over my weight.
Fellow fat people, what's something that you do that you're pretty sure really pisses off thin people?
Aside from the obvious existing while fat without hating myself, that really pisses people off for some reason. I'm one of those people that spends the majority of my life just walking around half naked in lingerie. I'm not wearing clothes unless I absolutely have to, you know what I mean? And so I get a lot of comments that are like, how are you so confident? Oh my god, you are so confident. And I know I mean it as like a compliment, I think, but it's just like, why wouldn't I be confident? So I started playing dumb and asking them that, going, wait, why does that make me confident? Everyone else is wearing the same kind of thing. Everyone, why am I confident? And they kind of shit themselves because they're like, oh shit, oh, gotta admit this was fat phobia. Whoops. But yeah, play.
Fellow.
So, like, let's be honest. You do have to have a level of confidence to dress in anything revealing. And as someone who's fat, like, you guys always talk about, being discriminated against. Gigi herself has talked about being discriminated against and experiencing fat phobia. So you would think that to be comfortable to dress in revealing clothes while fat, when you have so much to deal with, wouldn't that naturally be a reason to think that you have confidence? If you are as persecuted as you say you are, you can't have both ways. Are you confident because you have to deal with existing in what you call like a fat body, and you have to deal with people's unwanted compliments and being harassed? Or is fat like a completely normal thing, and of course you're confident? Why wouldn't you be confident? Which one? Because they're incompatible. They are incompatible with each other. So which is it? Which is it? It's not fat phobia. It can be, it kind of depends on how you want to interpret it, but you can either interpret it as someone doing it because you're fat, or you can do it because someone understands that as someone who exists in a fat body, you have to deal with so much, and you have to deal with so much fat phobia, that, of course, it would explain, why they think you're confident, why you're so confident. Oh my gosh, you're so confident because you have to deal with these awful people on a daily basis, and yet you still feel comfortable walking around in revealing clothes. Like, which is it? Which is it?
Oh my god, yes, thin people get so uncomfortable when you talk about your weight and clothing size like it's normal. Because it is. My personal favorite thing to do is to push that envelope even further though. So if someone's like, oh my god, you would love this insert website here, I'll go, oh, do they have fat sizes? And they go, what? I'm like,
because that's a weird way to phrase it. It's one thing to say, oh, do they have a 2X? Do they have a 3X? Do they have a whatever X? That would be a normal question. Do they have fat sizes is a weird question. It feels like it's purposely phrased so that way no matter what the person answers, it's wrong.
Do they have my size? Oh, well, like, what size? I'm like, just fat sizes. Because if I say plus size, they go, oh my god, yeah, they go up to a size like 14, 16. I'm like, oh, that's not gonna fit all this, my love.
Then that's why you ask specifically, do they have a size 2024? Do they have a size 3X? Do they have a whatever size? Saying, do they have fat sizes, like, is just an unfair question. That seems like it's you playing a game, it's you being manipulative, and it's you kind of purposely trying to burn bridges with your friends or something. It's like you're doing it specifically to get attention. That's a weird way to phrase it. I'm sorry, but it is.
So I do enjoy pushing that envelope even further and going beyond the like, do they have a size 20? Do they have a size 22? You know, just being like, do they have fat sizes? Do they?
But here's the thing as well with that, because fat is different to different people. Like, there's plenty of people, I guarantee if I went to fucking Beverly Hills in California, I would be, like, just a slovenly pig to them because I'm a size 12, 14. Like, fat is different based contextually where you are. So it's like, do they have fat sizes? Well, define fat. That's why it's like, I don't just go with the standard, do they have a size 20, do they have a size 22, whatever. You don't say that. You went beyond that because you were looking for a reaction. Let's be honest. You were looking for a reaction. Maybe, I've noticed with Gigi, they seem to really want to be treated as like this martyr and this victim, and from what I've heard from them, to a degree that they are, but it seems like they thrive in that area, and that's what they really want a lot of the time. And this seems like a manipulative way of framing a question to get a reaction that you want, whether it's to make the person squirm because for whatever reason you want to make someone uncomfortable, because you want them to put on all of this attention on you. I don't know, but it seems like a purpose way to phrase the conversation to elicit a specific one of very few reactions, simply because, and from the sounds of it, what it seems like to me is that Gigi wants to see other people uncomfortable and Gigi wants to see other people squirm. You know, the more I'm watching through all of their TikToks, the actual less I'm liking Gigi. There's plenty that I've cut out here, but there's just been this kind of ongoing thing where they either want to inflict discomfort on someone or they're a martyr in a lot of ways. And I think that to a certain extent they have been a victim in their life. I do think that. I don't think that they're lying about their childhood experiences, and there's been some stuff that they've talked about that just seems to me like, okay, no, that was a traumatic situation, and I'm sorry that you went through that. But at the same time, it seems like they, to a degree, exacerbate their own situation with shit like this. This was done not as some sort of revolutionary act. This was done because you wanted to make some people uncomfortable for some reason. For your own enjoyment. I don't know.
Or in shops being like, where's the fat section? They get so uncomfortable.
See? They're laughing about making other people uncomfortable. It's weird.
Oh my god, this. Because
people always go, don't say that you're not fat. You're cuddly, plump, comfy, curvy.
I refer to myself as fat because fat is not a bad word, and being fat is not a bad thing. Being fat does not change your value as a human being. Being a dickhead to fat people, on the other hand, does. So I get this. People always go, don't say that you're fat, you're cuddly, you're plump, you're comfy, you're curvy. Like, no, babe, I am fat. Also, I'm not comfy. This chair in this restaurant is too small for my ass.
You say it's not a bad thing, but then in the previous TikTok, you had said, well, where's the fat sizes? Specifically not using plus size or any of the regular terminology that's used in fashion, simply to elicit a reaction because you want to see people uncomfortable. So, which is it? Is fat not a bad word, or is fat a word that you're going to utilize to your advantage to make people uncomfortable because that's what you feel like for the day, because you're upset about something? I don't know. There's something about this that I'm really not liking. Not because of the fat rhetoric, but because it seems like specifically manipulative.
But also, I hate when people are like, no, you're not fat, you're fluffy. I'm not a fucking Yeti. You know who is fluffy? My cat.
And there's another caption that says, fluffy is honestly straight up dehumanizing. I think kind of referring to yourself as a fat body and kind of taking away humanity and taking yourself all the way down to just your weight is dehumanizing.
You know who else is fluffy? My other cat. You know who's not? Me. This is skin. I exfoliated it. I would know if I was fluffy. I'd have to blow dry my whole body, and there's a lot of that. You know why? Because I'm fat.
To be honest, though, I mean, we call marshmallows fluffy too, and they're not, they don't have fur or anything, and like, it's fluffy doesn't just mean with fur. I mean, if you don't like it, you don't like it. That's fine. But I'm just saying.
You want to know another thing I do that makes thin people really uncomfortable? Specifically the one.
Same though, Lamau. I love watching thin people go like cringe face when I refer to myself as fat in a very casual and neutral sense.
That just hate fat people. Like, they don't hate fat people. They're like, oh, I have fat friends. It's just I could never be fat because it's disgusting. You know, like that's what's going on up there. And sometimes they can't help it. But also, regardless, I don't give a fuck. So sometimes I'll just pretend I'm the same size as them, or like they look like me, or I look like them, which is two different things. So sometimes they'll be like, oh, it would be so cute, like, what if somebody, like, we wore the same thing, like, I've got the same thing in, like, a couple of different colours, like, you know, it's a size 8, would anyone fit it? And I'll go, oh yeah, I will. And the people that know me will have a little chuckle, but the thing about me is that I overcommit to the bit, and I'll always do it. Always, every single time, without fail. And I'll be like, yeah, it'll fit me. Obviously, it fucking won't. But for that split second, they're like, how do I tell her that it's not going to fit her? It's like, babe, you can just say I'm fat. We know I'm fat. You can just say it. But they won't. They won't do it. Or my favourite thing is working at the brothel. When a client can't decide between me and a thin person because, you know, sometimes they're just in it for, like, personality. They like the vibe, whatever. Anyway, and if you can't decide between myself and a thin person, I like to make a little joke like, well, of course he can't decide. We're practically identical. Look at us. And she'll be there with, like, big, perfect titties, like, slim little body, and I'm there like, hello. And they get so uncomfortable, like, how dare she compare me to her one? Like, you can see the disgust. And it's incredible. And look, I know it's a little bit mean, but it's even meaner to basically, like, hate the idea of ever possibly looking like me, because it's the worst thing that you could ever fathom for yourself. So I don't really care. But no, I will be.
And it kind of amazes me that Gigi doesn't see the difference. I'm going to let the rest of this clip play out, but there's a distinct difference between not wanting to be fat and what Gigi is doing. And I want to elaborate on that at the end of this TikTok.
That bitch that if you're like, I feel so fat today, I'll be like, oh yeah, we basically look exactly the same. Or if you're like, I'm so fat, I'll be like, yeah, same. Fat twins for life, you know? Get a little hip bump in there, and they don't like that. But the thing is, I don't like systematic fat phobia, so I don't give a fuck.
Okay, so we're going to specifically look at the size 8 t-shirt and then the brothel thing. So with the size 8 thing, the friend is just asking in general, would anyone fit into this? Because not everyone knows everyone else's size. Completely innocuous, and yet you're purposely trying to make them uncomfortable. Same thing with the brothel thing. The other woman that's just trying to make her coin, doing the same as you, and you're doing that specifically to upset her and make her uncomfortable. The idea of, I don't want to be fat, is a very personal thing, and it's not necessarily vocalized. It's not necessarily vocalized, and yet you are upset at a thought crime for someone. And in your terms, systematic fat phobia. And in terms of systematic fat phobia, they have nothing to do with that. So you're angry at either a thought crime that you perceive is happening in someone's head. Because that's another thing, is that just because I don't want to be fat, it does not equate with I don't want to look like you. Those are two different things. Along with that, you are purposely trying to create awkward and uncomfortable social situations, when the majority of our generation is socially awkward to begin with. So you're making things worse. Like, there's a big difference between your perception of what someone else is doing and then actually creating uncomfortable situations. There's a difference there. So the caption says, healthcare practitioners dehumanize fat patients.
Tell me why the computer tells me that it's the address for Marineland.
Long story short, a patient came in to get an MRI at a hospital that this guy worked at. Patient didn't fit in the machine, allegedly, and so they referred the patient to another place where they would have a machine that would accommodate them with their size. Dude looks up the address for them because they're like, it's far away, where is it? And he sees that it's whatever it was called, like Marine Life Land or whatever the fuck. Basically the machine that they use for like the dugongs and other large mammals. He also says that he's not going to tell the patient what the place is. Anyway, one time I needed like some kind of scan or whatever, and they were like, you're not going to fit in the machine, which is bullshit because the week before I did fit in the machine and I had not changed weight at all. This doctor was just horrifically fat phobic. And so they were like, here's a referral to go and get the scan elsewhere. And I was like, oh, do you have any recommendations? And they were like, try the zoo. Anyway, doctors are fat phobic. The health system is fucked if you're fat, and we deserve the same health care as...
Tell me why.
If you don't fit into the machine, though, you don't fit into the machine. And I'm sorry that if they really did say, try the zoo or whatever, it's rude. If the person did refer them to a marine place, like, there's just higher weight limits for those. Like, I don't know. I feel very weird about this one. Like, on the one hand, it sucks. Yeah, I'm not saying it doesn't suck. I'm curious when this happened with the MRI with Gigi, because MRIs typically have like a 300, 400 pound weight limit, right? Which means at 220, 227, whatever, Gigi would reasonably fit in. And at 227, that's not an like way out there number the way some of the other numbers are. There's men that can be a healthy weight, and I mean, if anyone who's like really tall can, I think, be a healthy weight at 227 if they are like exceptionally tall. But I don't know. There's something iffy about this for me. I don't know if I believe this one.
This is in response to me saying that I have...
The comment says, well, at least a wake-up call to make some changes. Well, at least it's a wake-up call to make some changes.
A doctor that told me to go to the zoo for a scan because I was like too fat for like the people scanners or whatever the fuck, which I wasn't, by the way. I said in my other video I had used that same location's machine like a week prior, not an issue. And after I kind of got over the trauma of that whole situation, I went and got my scan done elsewhere, which uses the same machine, which I fit in perfectly. I did not go to Taronga Zoo and get a scan. I just went to a local clinic like anybody else. That being said, being told that I should go to a zoo for scans as a result of me being bigger is not a wake-up call to make some changes. It's not okay, and it's fat phobic. That's what it is. You want to know what happened after the doctor made that comment to me? I completely broke down crying before I even made it out of the building. I stood in the pharmacy waiting to get my meds, and I just sobbed, and a lady felt sorry for me and bought me a Kinder Surprise, and they asked me if I was okay, and I had to be like, yeah, I'm so sorry, I'm fine. I then got in my car and I was too upset to drive safely. Like, the tears were just coming. There's no way I could have safely driven home. I sat in my car for over an hour crying. I could see the doctor that had just said these things to me walking around in his office, getting up, doing his thing, like nothing had happened, because to him nothing had happened. What he did to me was not important. The fact that he had hurt me so much didn't matter to him. I was traumatized. Yeah, a week or so later I got my scan done elsewhere, but you know what? I didn't go back to doctors for a really long time. I was not well and I needed that help. This wasn't like a wake-up call. This wasn't like a, oh, yeah, I should go and lose some weight. I didn't go home and magically lose 100 kilos or some shit, right? I went home and I stayed there and I cried and I was too scared to see another doctor because I already knew that they were judging me. But I had been dehumanized and I had just been pushed too far as a fat person trying to receive medical care. This incident happened like 7 years ago. And to this day...
So this was before their weight loss surgery. chances are, because I looked up 180 kilos, and it's right on the border of about 400 pounds, which would be the max for the MRI. Now, there's a chance that, because Gigi said that they had gone in the week prior and it was fine. Well, did they go in the week prior, and then after they had done it, the machine didn't work the way it was supposed to? Because sometimes that can, like, you can think it's fine and it works well enough for that one patient, but then afterwards it starts acting funny and they have to get it serviced, and maybe they didn't want to get it serviced again. Like, I'm not saying it's right. I'm not making any judgment calls on the doctor. I'm just saying, for the machine itself, even if you could fit into it, perhaps the machine couldn't handle your weight. That's all I'm saying. And while the zoo comment was callous, quite frankly, I mean, I've worked with doctors that are like this sometimes, where they can make very offhanded remarks that seem very rude and cruel, and sometimes they are, but really it's like a practical method of, like, well, what am I supposed to do? I mean, you could try the zoo. Like, it's not necessarily meant to be insulting, even though it is. Like, it's just like, well, this is the reality. And I don't doubt that it wasn't a wake-up call for you. Even if the zoo comment hadn't happened, it probably wouldn't have been a wake-up call for you, because we've seen people that are like, I can't get it because it only goes up to so many pounds, which means that it's the hospital's fault for not having better equipment to suit someone of my size. Like, Gigi hasn't said this, but there have been other ones that have said this, and it wasn't a wake-up call to Amberlynn Reed when she needed an MRI and couldn't fit in the machine. And I still don't think that she has reached a weight where she could fit into that machine. And no, the doctor doesn't necessarily care that they upset you. That's not their job to care for your feelings. It's their job to figure out if there's medical issues wrong with you. And there's some people that disagree with that, and there's some people that prefer this kind of callous method because they don't want their feelings protected. They want to know what's wrong. They want this to be handled as clinically as possible without the touchy-feely stuff. Like, it kind of depends on the person. Perhaps this just wasn't the doctor for you. But I really get the feeling that the doctor is just one of those callous types that just puts things out there in a very clinical, unfeeling, cold way, because they're very much in that mindset of their job of, this is a problem-solving situation. The equipment that we have will not suit you. Maybe you should try the zoo. Like, I'm not saying that it was kind, because it wasn't, but I don't think the doctor was necessarily concerned about being kind. I think they were like, this is the issue, this is what you need, and we don't have anything here, but something that services large animals might be able to help you. Sometimes it's just a matter of they're voicing the reality of the situation, and they're not going to sugarcoat it.
It sticks with me to this day. I struggle to receive medical care, which sucks because I am chronically ill and I am disabled, and neither of those things have anything to do with my size. In fact, I am disabled because I lost weight. But like 2.5 years ago, I nearly died because I was so sick, literally dying, and was too scared to go and ask for help because I knew that I would be treated poorly because of my size, and I was terrified of being dehumanized and just left to die in the waiting room. And
Alright, I'm not commenting anymore on that. I feel like I've said enough about that whole situation, so we are moving on.
Hello there, Dr. Dipshit, and welcome to the lesson that you apparently missed in
Alright, I was going to start with this one. This is another thing on medical fat phobia. I feel like I need a break, and I've about hit the 2-hour mark for this recording anyway. I was really hoping to get through all of Gigi today, but we're only on July 5th right now. So we still have about 4 months to get through, and I kind of need a break from this whole situation with Gigi. I have no idea how long this is going to be total, because there's a lot that I'm going to have to cut out. But let me know what you thought of the video. Some fun facts about Lily real quick. Lily only knows my dog Lily. Hard pivot. But fun fact about Lily is a Chiweenie Dachshund, or is a Chiweenie, which is a Chihuahua Dachshund mix. She only knows one command, and that is catfight. And the reason why that came about is because she's always lived with more than one cat. and the cats often get in fights, and she likes being a little enforcer, and she has grown to like charge the cats to break them up when they're fighting. And we also had a number of neighborhood cats that would fight in our yard, and so we would call to the like other people to help in the house if someone spotted the cats fighting, saying, "Hey, there's a cat fight. We need to break it up. Get some water or whatever to help break up the cat fight." And so she picked up on what cat fight meant. And so anytime there's a cat fight, we yell, "Cat fight, cat fight." And she goes barking and charging, looking for cats to break up the fight. So that's a little thing on Lily. Something else is she has alopecia. So she does have, well, she has fur around her head and neck. Her body is largely hairless. That's why she wears sweaters when I take her out for walks. I think that's all I really have to say. For now, she just turned 10. She just turned 10. My baby just turned 10. And that's about all I have for Lily right now. She is afraid. Actually, no, there's one more fact. She is terrified of two cats in the house. She won't break up their fight. She's scared of them, and I'll point them out when I show them some other time. Some updates on my life. I lost my pound, so I'm back down to 184. The holidays are coming up, and I have almost finished my holiday shopping, which is nice. Oh, I started drinking tea, and oddly enough, I found that it is starting to, like, really cut down my sugar cravings. Like, I put a little bit of monk fruit extract in my tea, which isn't like regular sugar. It's like a sugar alternative, and I don't crave sweet things the same way. It's crazy, and I've started to get into tea, and I've actually found that it helps with my hunger as well. I don't get as hungry. I will say though, do not drink oolong tea. I will never drink oolong tea again. I did not realize that it has a laxative effect until I drank it. That was not a fun experience. I will not drink oolong tea again. I like herbals. I'm starting to try some black teas. But if there's any tea drinkers out there, tell me what your favorite tea is. I like herbals. There's this one from a local tea shop called Yummy Berry. That's a combination of apple, orange, and hibiscus, and it's delicious, especially with a little bit of that monk fruit extract and like a little bit of milk. Not much, just like a splash. It's very good. But that's all I have for today. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.